cutie. Hello. Sorry, I think I've got some streaming issues. I don't know what's going on with my internet connection. Buffer. Okay, open widget. Let's see. It doesn't really tell me anything, does it? Settings, can I tell it to stream? Oh, okay. Good, thank you. Hopefully that helps. Apparently we had some downloads going at the same time that will hopefully be gone now, and we'll have better streams. Do I have a chat going? Wait one moment. Live chat. Hello. Hello, welcome. Oh, wow, we're really late. We're really delayed here. Hopefully that improves shortly. Sorry, we had some buffering issues at the beginning of the stream, but my husband has closed down some downloads, so hopefully that'll deal with whatever my internet was struggling with. get things a little bit smoother now. It looks like it's a little behind, but running now. So it'll probably be just on more of a delay, as far as I can tell, than it usually is. So if I'm taking a while to answer comments, that's why. It's because I don't see them until a ways later. And we're still saying it's a poor stream. I don't... 3:39, but that's like quite a ways ago, so I don't know what's going on. Hopefully it updates soon and the quality is better now. I hope the quality is better now. It's hard for me to tell because the YouTube doesn't give me a huge amount of visibility here. Hi Lana, how are you? Can you tell me if now the video is, like what the video quality is like now? I'm hoping that I fixed it. So, hi Mom, how are you? How are you? How's Josazar? I don't see buffering. It seems to run fine. Yes, so I think that was just at the beginning. My husband had some downloads going and he shut them down. Because sometimes that runs into problems if we're trying to do too much on the network at once. And I am... The other thing that might be slowing it down, but I don't think it's a problem, is... that looks kind of blurry now. What can I... Okay, much better. Great. The only other thing is that I am also recording as I stream because I have a video that I'm making with this footage. I have a new co-op who started this week. He's been, this is a high school student, so our local school boards, our local, I guess, high schools, they run a course that's a co-op course, so the students don't get paid. They work, it's about the equivalent of a full-time month. So in the summer, it's actually just a month full-time, or if they do it during the school year, they take 2 to 3 hours a day for 3 to 4 months, where they're working with a local business. So the last couple summers, as well as now, I have had co-op students working with me, which is really, it's kind of neat. It always feels a little awkward that, like, here's my unpaid child labor. Nice, new video. Yes, yeah. So I have actually a whole bunch of videos coming out. But I'm also pretty excited because the co-op student that I just got, he's really interested in doing some video editing, which the past students were not so much. And so I'm pretty excited about that. We have to figure out how we're gonna handle that because, well, as you know, editing video is a bit of a pain on like lower powered laptops. I do all of my video editing at home on a desktop, but my home is a construction nightmare. So mostly I've been trying to keep my co-op students at the offsite studio. So I don't know if I'm going to bring him here or bring the computer there or something, because I would like to give him a chance to do some video editing. For now, he's been really enthusiastically working on getting my Discord all cleaned up and running nicer. Yeah, he seems like a really good kid. He's a little bit older than the other high school students that I had in the past. This is a 12th grader, so he's like closer to graduation. So he's 17, where the other ones were 15 and 16. And it's kind of amazing what a difference like a couple years make at that age. So it is nice to have somebody who's a little bit closer to adult. Yeah, so he's been working on my Discord, and then we're gonna figure out how to have him work on some video stuff. I do have quite a bit of video to work on because I just had a new co-op student and we're bringing in new people at the studio too. I haven't been, you know, in front of a video editor for a while, but I am health-wise feeling a lot better, so I do have a good bit of video content to put out in the next few weeks. I just need to get it edited, and so some of it I'm going to edit, and some of it, hopefully, we're going to get the new co-op student to edit. And then I also need to do the Halloween exchange video. Yeah, I considered recording that, but I don't want to put it on a public stream. I'll probably do like a Patreon Discord stream. I just noticed the Discord movement and bots, etc. Yeah, so that's my new co-op, Jacob, has been picking away at that. So he's got the Patreon integration working. I believe we actually have it working properly. He was just concerned that if people joined through Patreon and then lapsed their Patreon membership, either just due to a payment issue, which sometimes happens, or if they cancel their Patreon membership, which is totally fair, you know. Situations change, and while I appreciate all the people who have been very lovely and generous about supporting me on Patreon, I don't expect that everyone can always keep that up. So I was just a little bit concerned that what if we have some issues? So I'm gonna try to start up a tinting palette here. yeah, so there's some fun stuff happening on Discord. I've got some advice from the youth about doing a little bit more short form content for Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. We'll see if I actually do TikTok or not. That's a fun one, right? Like, there's a lot of talk in some creator spaces about like, oh, that, you know, TikTok is where you can get easy growth, draw a bigger audience. Now, the last few co-op students I've spoken to, so these are high school students, way more on top of what the latest things are than I am, have said, I don't know, like, maybe there seems to be some mixed opinions about whether that's really the way to be. Yeah, I think it does work. We were a little bit concerned for two reasons. First of all, it updated some people's roles, but not everyone's, including like patrons, where I could see people who, like, I know what Patreon tier they're on, and yet their flair wasn't updated, whereas others were. But I think Jacob figured that one out, where it's actually it's just the people who got updated actually joined through Patreon, either earlier or more recently, whereas the people who didn't get updated, like, even if they're Patreon supporters, they had joined the Discord separately from Patreon. And so they didn't get their stuff updated. We're just going to set up a channel so that people can set up their own roles. I think people tell a lot. I've also seen people be frustrated with TikTok of having a big reach but no customers. Well, yeah. Yeah, and then there's also just a, like, well, who is the reach? And it's interesting to me where I think it might be, there's a big reach, but it's a very specific, like, it captured a half of Gen Z or something. I mean, it might be worth a shot. It's just, it seems like both, you know, my generation, I'm getting a little old, and the like the youngest, you know, active internet generation are neither of us is particularly on TikTok. It's like, it's this very specific group that kind of got captured there. It might be worth reaching out to. I also, like, I've had trouble with Instagram lately, but to be honest, I think it's because I didn't adapt to like short form video reel content particularly efficiently. I'm gonna I know my content doesn't resonate with young people, which I'm fine with, to be honest. I am and I'm not. There's my co-op student was commenting, like, I had him do a bit of research and like, hey, can you do a bit of research and then like pitch me some like, you know, content suggestions, like, what do you think we should try? And at some level, I just wanted to see what he would come up with. You know, I feel like I can learn a lot from like, okay, this is what he says, and like that will inform like both, you know, if I do want to listen to him, it'll inform what we're gonna do, but it also tells me like, is this someone whose input I want to take? And in that sense, it was super positive. That, so now I've got this pencil that's it's slightly deformed, so I'm just using it as a little scratching thing. Like I'm just using it to scratch in some texture in here. And I do, like, I think it's worth noting that, especially when I started out in botanical art, which is a very, like, in terms of the artists in botanical art, it's a very, very old field. And so I was, you know, in my 20s when I started out, but late 20s, and you know, I was considered super young. I still am considered super young in the botanical art world. I'm 35. But my customers, like my personal customers, were for a long while, my average customer was younger than me. And I'm not sure if that's quite true anymore, but it was for a while. And I think that that's a valuable thing, to be always bringing in new people, especially as I get older, you know? Like, it's not... so some amount of, like, not just becoming complacent to, like, I'm old and I do things in old ways, is valuable. But the thing that the co-op student said that I found really quite reassuring in terms of, like, is this somebody who I want to listen to, was he had suggestions about, like, using trending sound and experimenting with, oddly, he was suggesting experiment with the, like, you know, the really canned AI voice? He was like, that has some recognition to it, that in things like Reels and stuff, like, it may be worth just experimenting with that. But he was talking about, like, including, you know, trending sound, trending whatever, but also he made a big point of, like, yeah, but, like, you also have to stay true to your content and your audience, and you don't want to, like, alienate people because, you know, suddenly you're going to be chasing TikTok trends and doing TikTok dances. Like, that's not, doesn't make sense. And I think that's, yeah, like, you know, I have to keep the people who follow me, and I have to, like, stay true to the content that I actually want to create, too. But within that, you know, I think there's still a lot of room for it's weird, right? Because, like, I do have my voice, you know, a lot of people use it who don't want to have their voice on YouTube, or that's what I thought that was the main purpose, and I was like, wait, but I have real voice, why would I do this thing that's, like, clearly fake? And it was just an interesting perspective that I think is worth experimenting with, is, like, there's a value to anything that has a recognition, like a familiarity to it. You know, I'm not going to switch all of my content to AI voice because it gets annoying. But if I try, like, one or two real type things with it, like, you know what? Maybe that is a thing that, like, here and there, anything that creates, like, a recognition, a familiarity, you know, it's like, it's this weird, like, weirdly comforting thing just because people are so used to it. It's very odd, but... Are TikTok dances still trending? I mean, I'm sure some of them are, right? It's like always some new thing, some new TikTok trend, but, like, there's very little that, like, whatever I put out has to fit in both with my past content, but also, like, what I want my my audience to be, right? Like what my audience is, but also what I want my audience to be, and what content do I want to create, like ultimately. And at some level, like, I have some flexibility where it's like, yes, I mean, I do have, like, you know, my preferences, but at the end of the day, this is my job, and why I'm doing it is in large part, like, well, everyone needs an income, and for a variety of reasons, mine is going to be my self-employment. You know, so like, yeah, okay, and if some of my income just comes from, like, the Amazon influencer program and reviewing products, like, is that my dream? No, but everyone needs a job. Or I feel some also go back to more chill long-form content. I don't know what's happening, to be honest. Like, some ask for longer videos that are calm to listen to, like podcasts. Yes, and I think I do need to, like, sort of balance it a little. Like, I was talking to my husband, and he was like, yeah, a lot of your content is really, like, slow, like, calm, put you to sleep, and, like, okay. And is that something, like I imagine that is affecting my retention, right? Like, my retention is not the highest, which obviously then affects, like, how, even, like, within YouTube, how YouTube promotes my content. Although I will say that my growth, like, within the, I find it most useful to compare my channel to, like, other art watercolor channels, and, like, you know, find people who are successful in similar niches to try to compare to, versus, like, yeah, well, you know what, like, no, my engagement doesn't look like Mr. Beast, nor is it going to, because that's not the content that I ever am gonna make. Because, like, honestly, that's not, you know, if I did build a channel to that size, like, I don't think I would enjoy that life, right? Like, yeah, okay, he makes money, but, like, you know, I'm not really aiming to be a billionaire here. Not really, like, my top priority. Some want it super fast, etc. Yeah, well, and I think that like, it, you know, you want maybe some combination, where you have, like, some slower videos and some faster videos. I can see how, like, there are ways in which I could, you know, speed up my content without losing anyone, especially because, like, if you want a slower video, then watch a live stream, or join me on Patreon and I can put longer form videos there or something. If it puts people, yeah, but you need people to watch those, you know, if you look at the retention graphs on YouTube, you need people to stay for those first 30 seconds. Then if they fall asleep around minute 5, like, that's great. Some of my older videos, actually, you can probably find this on yours too, if you go through the watch hours for older videos, I will sometimes get a graph that's like, here's the average view time for a video, right? Where did I? Sorry, I'm gonna grab a notebook. Notebook. Where do I hide my notebooks? Here's a notebook. I will get my average view time graph, right? So it's like average view. and it's like day by day. So like day, you know, 1, 2, 3, whatever. And you'll have the view time where it's like, you know, 5, 10, 15. And then sometimes it'll go way up where it's like, okay, like blah, 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 whatever, 45. Because I have view times that do this, da 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 da. And then suddenly you have one day that like the view time is way up here. But then you look at the views and it's like, yeah, because there were only 3 views that day. And so clearly one person just had it on loop. And just watched this video for like 6 hours. Yeah, so I've been playing with like how can I bump up my retention just a little? I mean, again, like, yeah, I'm not gonna edit with the like super crazy move the screen non-stop sounds, really, you know, oh yeah, this is how you whatever. I'm also not gonna play the YouTube pyramid scheme game where I teach other people how to make it on YouTube. Like, I get that that's how you make videos that get views on YouTube, but like, ouch. That's a that's a pyramid scheme. I should fall asleep to your videos more often, I see. Oh yeah, we're all just gonna start like putting on each other. Start making playlists of everyone's videos. Like, this is my sleepy time reel of quiet quiet watercolor videos. I hate that. This is how you grow on Instagram, but they only grew through that and not their art. Like, yeah, you're not teaching me anything. Yes, and you'll get like, you know, I get caught by it too. So like, I understand exactly why it works. Like, this is how you're gonna sell your art. And like, but, you know, and you watch like a few things from the same creator and you're like, but what art do you actually make? Because I haven't actually seen any of your art. You just make content about YouTubing. Like, this is stupid. Like, I don't care what your viewership on your videos about viewership are like. But then people also want that, like the number of requests for like, oh, what camera are you using? What, you know, how are you editing your videos? How, like, tell me about your YouTube viewership. I'm like, really, do you actually want that? I'm like, kind of, but, like, I kind of want it too, but, like, I kind of want it from somebody who isn't making that content. So it's a bit of a... I like one channel, they look into statistics of other channels and draw conclusions from that, not their how to YouTube channel. Yes, right, exactly. Yeah, and then you have somebody who's like, okay, they have their niche, they are specializing in, you know, statistics and how to YouTube, that's great. But then they're like actually teaching you something based on like, oh, okay, so like now we're looking at art channels and this is how people are doing on art channels. And this is how people are doing on how to YouTube channels, but it's not a like, here's how to art channel, and it's how to art channel, right? It's like, okay, well, you know, enough meta here. Hi, Terry. How are you? Welcome here. I have to leave for a bit and go for a walk with Dante. We'll be back in a few minutes. Perfect. I'll see you in a little bit. I'm gonna go grab myself a coffee in the other room, so if I'm quiet for a moment, that's why. Hello, hello, hello. So I don't think I've seen you in these live streams before in my comments, Terry. Nice to meet you. If you're not already in my Discord, there's a link in the video description where you can join my Discord and chat throughout the week. I try to stream most Fridays. But then throughout the week, and when I'm not streaming, you can catch me on Discord. And yeah, I do natural science illustration, mostly botanical. I nerd out about pigments, watercolor. And gardening sometimes. Oh, funny story. So I have a big garden, and this year I tried to I grew a bunch of different varieties of Maxima squash. I was also trying to grow cantaloupes. I've been experimenting with growing a bunch of different varieties and saving seed. And one of the varieties of squash, of pumpkins that I grew, we opened up this year, and it's the weirdest thing. We just opened it up, and my assistant who's downstairs, she's prepping some food, and she's making like a pumpkin cake thing, and she opened up the first squash or pumpkin and sniffed it and was like, I'm actually gonna open a second one. And so she had the first pumpkin open. I came downstairs and she was saving seeds, and I sniffed the first pumpkin. I was like, this smells really fruity, like a cantaloupe. Hi, Lauren. Smells like a cantaloupe. And she said, yeah, that's why I opened a second one. I brought it upstairs and I had my husband smell it, and his first impression was also like, what the heck? This smells just like a cantaloupe. And it's not like people talk about, oh, I planted a cantaloupe and it crossed with squashes. That's not a thing. Cantaloupes don't cross with squash. My cantaloupes in my garden they got overtaken by squash though. But this squash was just the weirdest thing. Like it looks like a pumpkin. It looks exactly like a pumpkin. And then, but if you open it up inside, it looks, again, like a pumpkin. It's the right color, the right texture, the guts are pumpkin guts. It is 1000% a pumpkin, but it smells like a cantaloupe. And if you cut it up, like you cut up a section and you eat it even just raw, it tastes like it's got the texture of raw pumpkin, but it tastes like a sort of very mild cantaloupe. It is so weird. So we're gonna try roasting just a section of that, figure out how to use it, because I got a pumpkin that, so we saved all the seeds from that because it's just too interesting to pass up. But I have a pumpkin that tastes like cantaloupe. And so I'm very excited having about my, like, this year I was getting, you know, getting into saving seeds. And like, is this worth it? Is this going to be just some big project that's going to take up a bunch of time and yield, you know, mediocre results? It's not that difficult to just buy seeds. But I have to say, if this means I can start developing weird things like pumpkins that taste like cantaloupes, that's pretty cool. So that's my fun story from today. If this is your first time here, I should probably give a little bit of background on this painting. So this is Encrusted Saxifrage, which is an Arctic species. I did a residency on, my second residency on Porphyry Island in Lake Superior this summer. And I'm doing this painting of Encrusted Saxifrage and exploring backgrounds in botanical art is really my exploration here. Porphyry Island is in Lake Superior, so it has a very cold climate because it's a little volcanic island in a cold lake. And so it has what's called an Arctic disjunct. So there are a number of species present on the island that don't show up in the surrounding landmass because they're native to much further north. And they showed up during glaciation, like their range extended during glaciation, but then as the glaciers receded in most places, their range moved back further north, and just in a few spaces where like a few pockets where the microclimate is much colder, there's like isolated populations of a few species. So this is one of them, and I've been sort of fascinated with the like botanical art is a very, very, you know, traditional field, shall we say. Like there's a lot of, you know, rules and conventions that botanical artists tend to follow. And a lot of them, you know, they're passed down from like Victorian traditions, and I feel like in some cases they can be kind of counter to what we necessarily want. So one of the big conventions within botanical art is subjects are, you know, your botanical subjects are represented on a plain white background so that you don't have distractions or like overlapping other plants, just for the clarity of identifying that one plant. And you know, there's some logic to that, but it's passed down from the tradition of like specimen collection. It's very Victorian. You know, you're gonna have a curio collection, you know, bell jars and plain white backgrounds. You got a museum specimen, but plants don't grow in museum settings. And so I think it's actually very valuable to understand not just, oh, this is the structure of a plant in isolation where, you know, there's no nibbled leaf, there's no whatever. This is the exact structure of how this plant in ideal situations would grow, but also understand like where you're actually going to find your species. What environment do they grow in? And you know, I think in some ways that can be much more valuable to the modern scientist, is to understand the full context of what it is that you are looking at. And so, because this is, you know, a sort of unique plant that grows in these sort of extreme environments, it's like, okay, well, where did I find this? I think it's relevant to show the setting of like, well, this is a volcanic rock. And this isn't a rocky outcropping, and this is where you're going to find this plant. And so I sort of tried to push that, because this is sort of like this extreme setting, to like really sort of try to showcase that while still having the like relatively unassuming plants still make that the subject. Yeah. I get a lot of time to myself to think about philosophy. So what are your interests in art or botany? What brings you here? Always interested in, with new viewers, how I attract people. Scientific, cool. Botany, biology, zoology, chemistry. Environmental, cool. Yeah. Sweet. Where in the world are you located? And you're in environmental science. Is that like a career, an interest, How can I pick your brain? So a yummier pumpkin. Yeah, we're not sure. I just had a tiny bit raw. The next thing we're gonna do is try to like roast some. I do too. I do not mind. Sorry, I'm not sure what you do not mind. An abstract artist, haha. Abstract artist. Okay, cool. Okay, so interest in environment, or you were just commenting on like what I was. Well, my artwork is in many ways very not abstract, but I do have a fascination with the, there's a point at which representational art just sort of turns into abstract pattern, and I find there's a lot of that in sort of like lichen and stuff, and so I have fun with that transition, that oh, scientific, we're in response to what you were talking about. No, there is a lag. There is a big lag on this stream in particular because I had I had some issues at the beginning with buffering, and it seems to have resulted in just a larger... There's always a lag on streams, but there's a larger one than usual here. My stream quality now is good, but it's just a good couple minutes behind. Okay, cool, cool. All right. Just an abstract artist. Cool, nice. I was the one lagging. Now I should be at the same time space with you. Ah, okay, well, I imagine it's actually both, but... I hardly ever visit other artists, which is a shame. Watching it live is quite interesting as well. Yeah, I find it's super useful, like career-wise, but also just enriching to interact with other artists. I'm really lucky I have a... right now I'm working from home. I do my streams from my home studio, but most of the time I work out of a co-op studio. So I share space with other artists that do a bunch of different things. And I have to say, like, that's probably been the biggest, like, advantage that I've seen in terms of, like, you know, choices I've made in my career that is just, like, that is just so, it's been so valuable to me to have that interaction with other artists as a regular part of my work. So I'm really happy about that. Yeah, it's a great bonus community-wise, but also just like inspiration-wise. I find it's very isolating to be, you know, always just working on my own things and lost in my own thoughts. I'm an introvert, but still. So it's useful to have, you know, that inspiration, that like, seeing what other people are doing. You know, and like seeing that in person has led me then to seek out other artists on YouTube and have like build a creator community through Discord. You know, I guess it was super beneficial to me. I kind of tripped into the studio to like have that value pointed out to me, and I love seeing like all the things that other people are doing, like even if it's a completely different field. One of my longest term studio mates, Charles Smith, runs Sundrop Studio, which is she does bead art, and it started out like really small, but now she's using like these big, you know, metal orb things, big metal balls, and making these gigantic room scale sculptures, and they're just like, you know, it's inspiring to see what people are doing with various different materials. Just sort of like makes you think of the possibilities of your own work in a different way. So, in case you're wondering what I'm doing right now, this is on, this is something called, Aquaboard. So it's a clay substrate on a masonite panel. So it functions a little bit like a watercolor paper mounted to panel, but with a few differences. The clay is less absorbent, so you can always lift things off by just wetting it and scrubbing a little, but also you can also just scratch out some of the clay. So these little succulent plants, they have a sort of furry texture to them that I am scratching in with. This is a mechanical pencil where the front tube just sort of, it's out of place, so it's not usable as a pencil anymore because it'll just break the lead inside it. But I'm just using that metal tube as an implement to scratch into the surface. And treat this like a scratch board to create some extra texture. I am very much a hermit type of artist. When I emerge, the world has shifted. Wow, I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, I am definitely prone to being, like, I'm an introvert. I'm prone to being a hermit. I find it valuable that my studio has sort of forced me to, you know, sometimes when I'm in the worst of my hermiting, I'll have my studio mates like, hey, where are you? Haven't seen you in a while. And having that reminder that, like, everyone needs to be a little bit social. Like, probably most people don't benefit from being a hermit all the time. You know, that's valuable on its own, but also just, yeah. I think there's so much that we can learn from each other. And so that's part of why I run these live streams as well, is it's a way to make sure that I'm always still interacting with people, even if I'm barricading myself at home. Which hopefully I'll be doing less of in the next little while, but I've had, you know, chronic health issues that have kept me from being out as much as I might want. Do I have a buffering issue again? Sorry. Oh, it's a little too yellow. Welcome back. Abstraction for me was the natural process of deconstructing the figure and subject. Cool. Tell me more. thinking back on what you said about some areas being more abstracted in what you do in botanical art. Let me see if I've got a good example handy. Yeah, so unfortunately I don't have most of my better examples here, but I do a lot of like lichen sort of paintings where it's like a whole tree trunk, and if I just have like all of the lichens climbing on that, you know, you zoom out and you've just got it's sort of like an aerial view landscape almost. Like you don't have, you know, it's a sort of abstract pattern of a bunch of shapes. It's shape and texture. No, it's shape and texture that's representational, like in some ways very, very realistic, but it's not So do you start then with, I guess my question is, are you starting with a reference, like a real reference, be it for composition or color or something, like an inspiration that is in physical reality, or is it just a I'm curious about process for abstract artists, I guess. I think that through experimentation we always find what we truly love, and that was my journey with art, but I think of myself as an eternal experimental artist. Sounds lovely. Yeah. What is the best way to share examples? Oh god, we have some sketchbooks here at least. Most of my stuff is at the other studio. Anything worthwhile in here? I mean, okay, here's some sketchbooks. So I did it's like a sketch for like what's ended up being like, this is a 30 by 40 sort of giant painting of an oak tree, but it's just the little bitty sketch. Lots of sketches in here. Yeah, I mean, again, this is like a study for a piece that I ended up doing, but like, you know, if you just have the, if you're just looking into a little piece of tree bark, it's pretty abstract. What do I have in here? Lots of mess. Ah, so much mess. I like lichen a lot. I think that's basically the conclusion. What do I have in this one? Not abstract. Yeah, don't really have the best examples here. I never use references, I usually work with emotion. Sometimes it can be a memory. Once the first piece is born, then if it is good, all the others spring from that, although each piece retaining their own identity, if that makes sense. Okay, cool. So you do, like, you work in series. And yeah, working from emotions definitely makes sense. I have, some memories from when I was very, very young of, I really enjoyed working with oil pastels, which they're so contrary to anything that I do nowadays, and I've, like, to the point where I've gotten oil pastels a few times and like tried to sort of get into it and can't quite get out of my own way enough to make it work anymore, but that I just sort of, yeah, go by feel with a bunch of oil pastels and mix them up and, you know, just fill up a page. And it was a really pleasant experience at the time that I haven't quite been able to repeat in adulthood, but love my sketches, thank you. Yeah, I've been making an effort recently to do more sketching. I've found a lot of my sketchbooks end up getting, I mean, they get color tests and what have you, but like, I find it sometimes challenging as a content creator to not end up making everything into, well, it's not so much like, I don't really have a problem if I just work as usual. I happen to have a camera on me and, you know, that turns into content. Like, that's what this is. but I've had some issues recently where it's like my sketchbooks aren't quite functioning the way they used to, in terms of getting carried away more than I would like with making decisions about what I'm putting in my sketchbook, rather than like, oh, I'm just going to open up my sketchbook and, you know, experiment with something that I've been thinking about. It's like, oh, I'm going to do a live stream, so I'll sketch a thing, but it's like, it's based on a request, and there is an expectation of it's going to be more finished. And so there's a little less free experimentation in my sketchbooks than there used to be. I've been trying to make an effort to get back into, you know what, I have some thoughts, some things I want to experiment with, and I'm just gonna go and do that in a sketchbook with or without a camera, but it's not a you know, it's less planned. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you know, either there'll be a video or there won't, but it's not a... Because I think that's important, you know, for development, to just have that opportunity to draw without an expectation of a particular outcome. Or draw is not the operative there. Okay, and then I need to... Yeah. You should keep them separate. Work with what you want away from the content needs, and that way you can still continue to develop your own work. I mean, I do to some extent. It's just there's a balance, right? Like, to be honest, most of my studio work I'm not recording just because it's difficult to record I work vertical on an easel for larger pieces. It's difficult to get a direct angle on that. So, you know, most of that is not recorded, and that's fine. There is so many hours in a day, so it's like I do, like I go to urban sketching meetups. Usually that is not something that's recorded, certainly not in full. And that's something that I started in order to have an outlet and develop certain skills that like weren't, you know, they're art, but they're not part of my professional business. It's hard when you make your interest you make your passion your career, you make your career your content, to not get things a little bit too mixed up, you know, like, oh, okay, and now we're gonna share my garden, and now suddenly I'm a garden lifestyle influencer. Like, there's some challenges of like trying to keep things a little bit separate, but also, you know, like, okay, but this is relevant stuff that, like, you know, I'm happy to share, but also just, you know, keeping some degree of separate between, you know, this is something that I want to develop and this is something that I'm exploring on my own, and not, you know, I'm not an open book for, it's not like my whole life is open to the whole world, right? So it's just balancing those things that, looking, you know, I do sketchbook tours, and again, I'm not ashamed to have, my sketchbooks are sketchbooks. There are pages in here that are just gonna be, you know, not, these aren't like edited art books. I am gonna finish this, but like, I'll have notes, I'll have doodles, I'll have swatches. Like, it's not, I have no problem with my sketchbooks being a rough space where I do all sorts of things. I take notes, I do lots of things. But it's just, I do find myself sort of like, when I'm planning what I'm going to do, when I'm thinking of what I'm going to do, like, I end up falling into, oh, I could just do this, which could be content, rather than like, you know, like, I don't think that should be the drive. It's just difficult to keep it from becoming the drive sometimes, if that makes sense. So it's important sometimes to prioritize things that are less likely to be turned into content. When I'm choosing between, like, oh, what I could do now, I could do this thing that I know is going to be content, or I could do this other thing that, I mean, I can turn my camera on over it, I can chat with people while I'm doing it, but it's just experimenting with, like, trying to figure out how to, you know, play with different lighting situations or something. Yeah, so I did a couple of like monthly, like month-long daily art challenges, and then in 2018 I did a year-long daily art thing where I painted a leaf every day. And so that has, in a very real way, like freed me of, I genuinely feel like I have a lot less of the, like nerves that some artists will develop about, maybe like, you know what, I am going to, let's see, scratch this up right here. What if I make that? Like I don't think that I have a major issue of like being afraid of messing up, in the sense of like I will happily start a piece on you know, finished paper, and it doesn't need to have a great plan beforehand, and if it messes up, it messes up. And I'll just work through it, or it won't, you know, it's not that part is not a big deal to me. I've done so much daily art that it's like eventually you just sort of get over that fear. And I think I'm over that fear, but there's still just it's like a prioritization of like where you're gonna put your energy. That, you know, I've just been looking at, you know, my more recent sketchbooks and like, there's certain kinds of experimenting where, actually one of the sketches that I flipped through in the most recent one, this actually came out of those thoughts, and it will be content. That's the weird part, is it actually ends up being content anyway. And I did record it. But I had a little, my last edited video, I had a little dot card from Beam Paints. Here, I will write in some. And I'd gotten some, like I'd asked for recommendations on, oh, what should I paint? And I got lots of people suggesting, oh, paint a fall landscape. And my first thought was, oh, okay, I should go get a reference for a fall landscape and, you know, plan a painting so that I can do this painting with those paints. And it was just this like, no, you know what? I just want to play with like, how do I convey like reflections in water? And like, I don't need which is like something that, you know, if I wasn't a content creator, if I wasn't monetizing my artwork, I wouldn't be worrying about. I'd just be like, oh, I'm experimenting with these paints. Let me experiment with these paints. And so sometimes I just need to break out a little bit of like, what is the product here? Like, I just need to pull back and like stop worrying about what the product is, be that whether that product is content or like actual merch or a finished painting or like whatever it is. Stop worrying so much about the end goal and just, you know, work on the process. And if something comes out of this, which like in many cases it does anyway, and in many cases it's actually, you know, better for that purpose, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. It's just a mindset thing that I think I need to work on a little. I'm gonna go washroom. I'll be right back. Okay, now back to these flowers. I have to say the little flowers, little white flowers, they've been a bit of a puzzle here. Sunday, October 20th. says it's buffering again. Having these ideas like, oh yeah, I'm gonna finish this real fast, like somehow I thought this is an 8x10, I'm gonna finish it in one live stream. It's now been 4, plus I've worked on it outside of live streams. So and I still have to do this part. And there's still all these details to fill in over here, like, oh my goodness. Hi Jessica, nice to see you, nice to meet you. If you're new here, welcome. I have a Discord channel linked in the video description if you'd like to chat throughout the week. I haven't seen you here around before. What brings you to my channel? Are you an artist, a scientist, Welcome. I do botanical art, mostly natural science illustration. Right now I'm working on a illustration of Encrusted Saxifrage, which is an Arctic species that I got to see at a residency I did at Porphyry Island in Lake Superior. It is mostly actually only present in much further north Arctic areas, but there's something called an Arctic disjunct, which is an area that's like uncharacteristically cold and has maintained some species post-glaciation that are not present in surrounding areas, like this. Yes, I know. You're a dog. Yeah. You're hearing my service dog, Ember, who's yelling at me because she thinks it is time for me to take her outside. Yes, we're gonna go visit Jessie and Jamie soon. Jessie and Jamie and Eddie. We're gonna see Jessie and Jamie and Eddie. Yeah, soon, okay? Soon we go see Jessie and Jamie and Eddie? Yes? Okay, sit please. Good girl. Yes, I need to do a little bit more work, okay? Yeah, I'm happy with it. It's an experiment with this new surface. I'd only used Aquaboard once before, and it was years and years ago when I had only just started with watercolor, so I had some really, well, just incorrect ideas about how it functions. Okay, let's see. Let's get these. Oh. Oh, that's too green. Too green. Alright, well, I think I'm gonna break here because I still need to figure out how to do these, and they are puzzling me, and I should just think on it for a little bit. But I guess I'm glad with the texture that I've managed to add to these rosettes here. This is coming along, so hopefully by next week we'll be able to finish it. And in the interim, I will have some other videos coming out over the course of the next week. Also, if you join the Discord, I sometimes do private streams that are unlisted. So I have a couple of things I still need to record that I might do that way and just chat with whoever is around without having to worry about the impact on new subscribers. Anyway, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.